Hello, everybody. My name is Ryan Koki of the Seahawk Recap Show, and welcome back to football, Seahawks fans, and welcome to the 2024-2025 Seahawk Game Recaps. And it's preseason week one, and oh, it's so nice to say that again for you guys. This is the second year that I am doing these Seahawk game recaps where I'll give the game summary, Ryan's focus players, people that I found were exceptional during the game and who I wanted to focus on and talk about. And then at the end of every episode, I will be giving my final thoughts. Things I thought the Seahawks did well in the game, things I think the Seahawks need to improve on for next game and future games throughout the season, and my final thoughts where I just share, what a great win or things that I need to see improved, and then I give a little synopsis to the opponent team and give my thoughts on their game as well. Without any further ado, let's get into recapping preseason week one as the Seahawks went to SoFi and played the LA Chargers for this matchup. All right, so game summary. Seahawks win 16-3 against the LA Chargers in their first preseason matchup. Let's start off with the Chargers because they were the home team. Total yards, 198 for the Chargers. Passing yards, the Chargers had 121. Rushing yards, they had 77 yards rushing. Yards per play for the Chargers, 3.7. First downs, they had 10. They went 2 for 13 on third down. They went 0 for 2 on fourth down. They had 53 total plays, 3 sacks allowed. They had 8 punts, 3 penalties for 20 yards given up, 0 fumbles, and 1 interception thrown. And the Chargers, at the end of the day, had 20 minutes and 52 seconds of possession time. For your Seattle Seahawks, it was just a great game. 325 total yards, 169 passing yards, 156 rushing yards. They had 4.1 yards per play, 20 first downs. They went 11 for 20 on third down, 0 for 1 on fourth down. They had 79 total plays, 3 sacks allowed, 7 punts, and they had 6 penalties for 20 yards given up, 0 fumbles, 0 interceptions thrown, and the Seahawks at the end of the day had 39 minutes and 8 seconds of possession time throughout the game. These numbers, I know it's just preseason week one, but if you have watched any of my Seahawk game recaps from the previous year, you will know that third down was abysmal for the Seahawks. And to see 11 for 20 is just, it's great. I really am enjoying this third down efficiency. I know it's only the first game and it's only preseason, so these stats don't really matter. But if these are things that can be cleaned up, and this is the kind of game that we're going to have through the first couple weeks of the season, I'll be all for it. Let's get to Ryan's focus players, and let's start off with the LA Chargers. And I wanted to highlight QB Max Duggan. He went 4 for 7, had 41 yards passing, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, had 2 carries for 15 yards. And honestly, Max Duggan really impressed me. Not many mistakes given up for the backup QB. He wasn't really utilized last season. He was in and out of practice squads and things like that. But for the Chargers, because they had no Justin Herbert and he'll be injured for who knows how long, Max Duggan could become the backup or even the starter for the Chargers. So in this game, he really had some pretty decent throws, and he was able to get out of some very tight spots with his legs, moving around, trying to shift around. So good overall game from Max Duggan. Let's move on to the running back and let's talk about Jarrett Patterson, 7 carries for 38 yards, averaged 5.4 yards per carry, and had 0 touchdowns. This guy was great. I don't know much about Jarrett Patterson, but in the beginning of the game, he was getting some big gashes, and this is a guy that's was very elusive, could make people miss, made a couple of Seahawks defenders on that D line miss. But overall, just a nice solid running back. 4.5 yards per carry is nothing to write home about, especially in a preseason game, first preseason game of the season. You usually see some sloppy tackling and things like that. And again, it's game speed, right? So these guys have not played. These teams have not played in actual NFL action for about a couple months. Training camp is training camp, and it doesn't account for in-game speed and how fast the game actually goes. So I think this was a good first game for the Chargers running back. And let's talk about wide receiver Simi Fioco. 3 receptions for 33 yards, averaged 11 yards per reception with 0 touchdowns. Again, this guy really big. Really, that was what happened with number 82 of the LA Chargers. I was recognizing him where he lined up in this game. He had 3 receptions for 33 yards, and that might not seem like a lot, but this guy is looking for a spot on the Chargers roster. And to be honest, the Chargers receiving roster right now is wide open because of departures like Keenan Allen and Mike Williams from last season. So this guy could really start to make a case for him to make the 53 if he continues to play well, like I think he did in this first preseason game. But let's get to the other side of the ball for the LA Chargers and let's talk about this defense. Let's talk about defensive tackle Christopher Hilton. He had 2 solo tackles, 1 assisted, 0 sacks, 0 forced fumbles. But some of the tackles that this D line made, especially early in the game, they were a little bit sloppy, a little bit less organized, but by the third and fourth quarter, they were, stiffening a little bit, trying to get this run game on the ground. And that's what you really need. Again, the Chargers are a rebuilding team. They lost a lot of big pieces to their team this offseason. It's just great to see from a defensive tackle standpoint, some of the tackles that Christopher Hilton made. But let's talk about DB AJ Finley, and that's a safety, strong safety to be exact. And AJ Finley had 2 solo tackles, 4 assisted tackles, 0 sacks, 0 interceptions. But in the fourth quarter, the reason why I wanted to highlight AJ Finley is because of that fourth quarter. He should have had a pick six against PJ Walker. This guy was flying around the field all game, trying to break up passes to wide receivers for the Seahawks, and he was causing a bit of an issue. So for the 22-year-old, this is something where you get to show off your talents. You're gonna try to make this 53-man roster for the Chargers. Now's your time to show what you got, and I think flying around the field, making not only some really good hits, but also trying to break up passes wherever you can and play the position to the fullest of your abilities, something that coaches like Jim Harbaugh will be looking for. But let's talk about a tackling machine at linebacker. It was Nick Niemann, as he had 11 solo tackles, 1 assisted, 1 sack, and 0 interceptions. This sack, man, from a linebacker position, when you're running downhill, you want to get to the quarterback, and Nick really did here, man. It was insane. I was watching this game, and I watch every single Seahawks game of this season, and it was just insane how good these linebackers were for the Chargers. 11 solo tackles is nothing to write home about. He was crucial in stopping the Seahawks run game, and having one sack in there just proves that he's looking to make this 53 for the LA Chargers. Good job from the linebacker. Next up, let's talk about the Seahawks and let's talk about quarterback Sam Howell. He went 16 for 27 with 130 yards and one touchdown, no interceptions. And this is the John Schneider guy. Remember, the Seahawks picked him up via trade with the Washington Commanders. And in his first preseason with the Seahawks, this is his first preseason game, and he actually did very well. I think what stood out to me was Sam Howell's decision making. His stats won't tell the full story, 16 completions for 27 attempts, but a lot of those incompletions were actually throwaways. Where a lot of the problem with Sam Howell last year on the Commanders was that because his team was down, because the Commanders were down in a lot of their games, he would be a hero and try to force things down the field to try and get his team a little spark. But now he's matured. He's 23. He's coming off of a year where he was thrown to the Wolves as a starter. Now he's going to be able to make better decisions with the football because there's not as much pressure on him. He's going to be a backup for the Seahawks, but I think his game really showed that he can slant when he needs to. He can avoid pressure when he needs to, which he needed to do a lot in this game because of the Chargers defense. There was a lot of breakdown from the offensive line in this one, but Sam Howell showing he's improved as a player, and his decision making was what really led the Seahawks to this win. And let's talk about running back Kenny McIntosh. I'm so happy to finally say that name as a Seahawks fan. 8 carries for 40 yards, averaged 5 yards per carry, had 0 touchdowns. But the reason why I'm so happy to say Kenny McIntosh is because last season, all we heard out of training camp last season was that how good Kenny McIntosh was doing, how good in camp he was. And then he got injured and did not play a snap for the Seahawks last year. And this guy looked great in training camp this year, and in his first preseason game, having 40 yards, averaging 5 yards a carry. This guy is super fast and super like electric. His agility is something like his cuts, the way he moves is just so slippery and so shifty. And I can't wait to see more out of Kenny McIntosh. He's also going to be fighting to make this 53-man roster for the Seahawks. And that third running back spot is open for the taking. And there's a lot of guys on this team in this running back room who would love to be in that third spot. And I think Kenny McIntosh right now has shown that he can be a front runner. I know it's only one preseason game, but man, if he continues to do this throughout the next 2 preseason games, I think that spot is as good as his. And for the wide receiver, let's talk about Laviska Shenault Jr. and a new guy coming in. And the reason why I wanted to talk about Laviska Shenault Jr. was because his 2 receptions for 31 yards averaged 15.5 yards per reception and had 0 touchdowns. Now, that might look like, oh, he didn't have a great game because of stats and all that kind of stuff. But that's why I always say, if you're watching the games, you'll understand where I'm going with this. Laviska Shenault is going to be so important this year, I think, because he is also a fast wide receiver, but he's also a special teamer. He's a guy that's going to take over that special teams role if he makes the 53-man roster. And he showed with some of his catches, he is exactly what the Seahawks like to use. I like what Ryan Grubb was doing. I like watching Ryan Grubb's offense because I'm not a big college football guy. I didn't get to see what Ryan Grubb had cooked up in his arsenal when he was with the Washington Huskies last year. So now seeing what Ryan Grubb's going to do with the RPOs and all the motion and everything like that, Laviska Shenault could be a guy that he gets the ball into his hand and he just runs for as much run after catch yardage as he can. So I'm really happy with Laviska Chenault's performance in this one. And let's talk about the Seahawks defense. Lights out. And oh man, watching Mike McDonald use this defense with this amount of personnel on it, oh, these guys are going to be special. Again, I know it's the first preseason game, but I'm so hyped. Let's talk about D lineman and DT. First overall pick 16, Byron Murphy the second. He had one solo tackle, no assisted tackles, zero sacks, zero forced fumbles, but this guy was getting double teamed. The reason why his stats look like the way they do is because this guy can get after it. He is so relentless. He is a competitor. And the thing that they were saying on the broadcast, the one thing that the broadcasters were really hitting home was how mature Byron Murphy is and how, he's willing to be coached and ready to get after it and really, really excited to join the Hawks and how he's really going to be trying to make this 53. And this man, I think he's going to make the 53 already. I know he's going to be great because he's getting double teamed in the preseason on the first game as a rookie and he's still able to make an impact, still able to get pressure in there. He almost had a sack in his first game, but unfortunately, Easton Stick, just spun away from him. But that's the big thing. I think Byron Murphy is going to be a big help to this Mike McDonald run stuffing defense. It's going to be so interesting to watch this D line unfold this season. But let's talk about DB and let's talk about safety. Yes, safety. Kobe Bryant, zero solo tackles, zero assisted tackles, zero sacks, and the one interception. Now, again, stat line doesn't look great, doesn't look like he did much, but Kobe Bryant, man. Last year, he was figuring out the safety position under Pete Carroll, and now he's got 1 year of experience under the safety position, and he got an interception in the first game. I'm so happy for him. I wanted to see more out of Kobe Bryant last year, and now I think with this Mike McDonald defense, with the amount of versatility that Mike McDonald uses his guys at and uses the positions, I think Kobe Bryant could be a pretty good player in this system. But man, this interception, the tip drill is so important. And this is how Kobe Bryant got that interception because of the tip drill. Big hit from Kayvon Wallace. And, just ball tips up in the air and he catches it. And he almost got two picks in this game. He was a finger away from getting his second pick in this game, but just a brilliant job from the second year safety. It's great to see Kobe Bryant now going to mesh again. First preseason game. I have to keep reminding myself that because I'm getting a little excited just seeing how good this defense played this first week. And speaking of playing good, let's talk about linebacker Derek Hall. Four solo tackles, one assisted, one sack, no interceptions. Derek Hall looks like he's ready to play at linebacker, playing one of those right or left outside linebackers this season. And this guy really tearing things up, stopping the run at every chance he could, creating pressure when he was coming off edges. And this is the thing, helping Byron Murphy in that instance. Byron Murphy was going to get his first career sack, but Derek Hall goes, okay, well, he's going to spin away from you, so I'm going to come back and beat down the quarterback, getting in the backfield. Everybody's having fun. And Derek Hall, man, very, very explosive, a very good, powerful edge setter. And that's what you need for a left linebacker. So, really good tackling from Derek Hall. We'll see what happens in preseason week 2. Let's finally get to my final thoughts and what went well. The Seahawks defense was lights out this entire game, only giving up a field goal against the Chargers. And it was a pretty long field goal, too, for Cameron Dicker. He kicks a ball that's 58 yards in length, his career high. And, that's just a testament to how good and versatile the player personnel is for this Mike McDonald defense. Just basic fundamentals, creating pressure from all angles. The Chargers couldn't do anything because there was just pressure everywhere any of these quarterbacks went. Easton Stick was getting hit a little bit, evading pressure when he could. Max Duggan was also doing that kind of stuff. It was just insane to watch this defense be high flying, full of explosive energy, and it's great to see. The secondary having a good old time with some of these hurried passes. Creating chances to try to generate turnovers for themselves. The secondary is so good. The two Auburn corners, I can't get enough of them. DJ James and Nahimala Pritchett. They're going to be fun to watch. From an offensive perspective, though, they didn't really have to do much. Kind of be game managers and take what was given to them by the Chargers defense. Great run scheme from Ryan Grubb. I realize that Ryan Grubb loves using empty sets and then motioning to get a single back. And usually that's how he did it all game long, is just motion. Okay, it's an empty set. Oh no, it's a motion. And that's what happened all game long. It was so nice to see the amount of movement that the offensive line has and things like that, and all the moving parts to this Ryan Grubb offense is going to be great. Him finding his star players in situations, setting them up for success, a lot of RPOs and things like that. So, you know what, Ryan Grubb? Great game from you from an offensive perspective, and great, again, from the defense. This is exactly what we want to see in the first showing. Very good first impression from both sides of the ball. And what to improve on. Although I'm really happy with the win, I do have some concerns about this O line. Again, it's only the first preseason game. You're gonna see some mistakes. You're gonna see some, busted coverages and, loosened up blocks and everything. But there were times all throughout the game where the pocket would just collapse around Sam Howell. And Sam Howell should have been sacked probably at least two more times in this game by the Chargers. If it wasn't for how good Sam Howell was with the decision making, not trying to force things and using his legs, spinning out of tackles. I forget who tried to sack him in the first quarter of this game, but somebody just got around McColdon Curtis and almost just buried Sam Howell. But Sam Howell goes, no, I'm just gonna take this. I'm gonna spin off the tackle and throw it out of bounds, make the best decision possible. And yeah, so just cleaning up some of the O line block shedding, make sure that you're not getting completely and utterly collapsed on would be great. But that's the only real big thing that I saw that they need to improve on, is just clean up some of the offensive line issues and don't be so stagnant in the second half. The Chargers got better. The Chargers defense got way better in the second half with the amount of pressure that they were getting in. So, trying to find your way through an entire game of football is going to be difficult for Ryan Grubb. But again, only his first game, still had a very, very impressive game from an offensive standpoint. So I can't be too mad. And my final thoughts. Overall, I'm so happy with this game and this win. Congrats to Mike McDonald on his first win in the NFL as head coach. The new era of the Seattle Seahawks is here, and it's going to be a breath of fresh air if things happen like they did this week. For the Chargers, I know this game had a lot more negatives than positive for you guys to take away, Chargers fans. I understand it, but I think overall the Chargers were actually not that bad. Honestly, they weren't that bad. You look at it on paper and you watch the game and you go, they're not being able to make the big plays. They're not being able to, move anywhere on offense. And it's like, did you see what the Seahawks defense was doing? Did you watch how the Seahawks defense was flying around? That's a very difficult thing to do on offense when you're just having the other guys be better and blanket everything. Like you guys should have had some passes that were caught, but Reek Woolen was everywhere on the field and he blanketed wide receivers. A lot of the corners blanketed your wide receivers. You guys are also a rebuilding team. With a rebuilding team, remember, you're building this team from the ground up. You had no Justin Herbert in this game, also. Remember that. That's your franchise QB. You've got a franchise QB and you've got a left tackle in Joe Alt. And that's basically it. You guys are gonna need to build up a lot of this team back up. So it'll be okay. It's the first game of a brand new season, but I think Jim Harbaugh, being Jim Harbaugh, will make the most out of the Chargers this season. You'll go through your growing pains, but at this point, as a rebuilding team, you just need to trust the process. Honestly, that's all you need to do. I think you guys will be just fine. It's only one game. Don't base it off of just one game. Have a little bit more faith. But that is it for the first preseason game of the 2024-2025 season for your Seattle Seahawks. What did you think of this preseason game? Let me know down in the comments section below. And go Hawks, go. I will see you next week when we take on the Tennessee Titans in Nashville. Take care.